Nedd fucking Brockmann. Welcome to Without Limits podcast.
Thank you, Ollie. Thanks for having me, mate.
I've done 2 podcasts now outside the UK. Usually I get people down to my studio in Harpen in Hertfordshire. I've recorded in LA and now we're in Sydney. So this is special.
Who's the LA?
A guy called Ross Mackay. He's
Right.
he's founder of a vegan kind of chicken alternative company, but now he's in sports nutrition electrolytes. So
There you go.
I know you don't do a lot of podcasts because I
Yep.
couldn't find much when I was doing my research. So I appreciate
That's
you coming.
good. Then we can get it all out here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. The podcast is called Without Limits, right? And it's the purpose is to sit down with cool people who are on the front line, pushing themselves and creating community, providing inspiration for people, people from the world of sports, business, entertainment. You're a young man who has rose in popularity over the last couple of years for doing quite incredible feats of endurance. And I think you are a embodiment of what Without Limits means.
Thank you.
So my first question is, what does Without Limits mean to Nedd Brockmann?
Yeah. Well, you put me on the spot about a minute ago saying you're going to ask me that. I think, like, for me, that would mean, like, essentially we're on this continuum of constantly adapting and constantly, for the last 4 or 5 years for me, I've what was deemed the hardest thing I've ever done has constantly been reevaluated every time I've done something, right? So when I ran 50 marathons, 50 days back in 2020, after never really ever running, worked 8 hours a day as a Sparky, then would go run 42K in the Arvo. And at that time, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Fast forward 2 years, ran across Australia, averaging 90K a day, dealing with the elements. And when I finished, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And then I, just finished a 1,000-mile run around an athletics track in 12 days. And I would say that's the hardest thing I've ever done. But, give me 2 years' time. I think what I'm getting at is the Without Limits is that we have none as long as you're willing to put the work in to, achieve what it is you've set out. So, yeah, I guess life is what you make it and what you perceive it, and the way you see it's very different the way I see it. So my limits are very different to yours, whether that be, whatever that may be. But yeah, I think we have none as long as we're willing to understand that and believe that.
That's power. You rattled off a couple of your achievements, but we've got 50 marathons in 50 days. And just to get that right, you did the marathons post 8 hours working as a Sparky.
Yeah. So I'd wake up. Geez, this is taking me back, even though it's only 3-4 years ago. I'd wake up 5:30, get, roll out of bed, creaking and breaking and being very hungry. And then I'd get to work by 6:30. By 3:30 in the afternoon, I'd, shadow box, fire up, try and get ready. And then by 4 o'clock, I was running 42K again. Some of those were 3 hours 45. Some were, I think the slowest was about 4 hours 20. And then I'd try and get home, eat, clean my clothes, do what I have to do, get to bed, do it all again. I wasn't very good on the tools at work, but I definitely showed up. That was
So we got 50 marathons in 50 days. You raised over $100,000 there for the Red Cross. 2022, we've got the 4,000 kilometers from Perth to Sydney.
Yep.
In 47 days, you broke the Australian record for that, or the world record for that.
Yep.
Roughly 90K a day.
Yep.
Raised 1.5 million for homelessness.
2.6.
2.6.
About 1.5 million pounds.
Pound. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And then more recently, 1,000 miles ran athletics track in 12 days, 13 hours. 3,760 laps of an athletics track. Where the fuck does the motivation for a Sparky come to do this kind of endurance?
Yeah, I guess I would say the electrical thing was just another chapter in my life. As I said, like at the start, it's kind of all about the progression and, if this door opens, this one shuts. So let's take this path. And I kind of found after the 50 marathons, I had a bit of a inkling. I knew there was more in this kind of world. I didn't know how to make a living out of that. And obviously I want to fundraise, I want to inspire, but there's also a commercial aspect and you have to live, right? So I was trying to work out how to put all three together and make a life doing these things. And so, yeah, I guess motivation is not one thing I have very often. I just have I guess I've made a decision, and once the decision is made, I don't really know the definition of decision, but it's to kill off anything other than the thing you've said you're going to do. And so once I say I'm going to do something, similar to talking about the coffee cup thing, I made a decision 4 years ago to never have a coffee out of a takeaway coffee cup. And so that is like one tiny little element of what I make up each of my every single day. So when it comes to running 1,000 miles around a track, I'm not very motivated at all after day one. I'm pretty like wildly the opposite. But it's the fact that I made a decision a year ago that I was going to do this, and everything in the lead up, there was decisions made on a multitude of things that led me to there. And so when I got to day one of this thing, it was like either you get it done or you go out in a friggin' body bag, because that's the decision that was made.
I've sat opposite many high performers, and I'm very lucky that I get to associate myself with people who are high performers in a number of different realms, and that kind of attitude towards decision making and making decision and following it through is something that they all have in common. All very different individuals in different contexts, but they have that in common. Where does that high performance come from with you? Because again, forgive me, traditionally, electricians wouldn't be deemed as like high performers in this realm. There's some amazing electricians, but that a lot of the time it comes from professional sport, sporting background, that kind of thing. Where did it come from for you?
I played sport when I was like growing up. I think with the Sparky thing, I kind of just chose that as I guess it was the natural progression for me with what I was doing. I went to uni before it. I wanted to be a pharmacist of all things. And then prior to that, like I rode, I played rugby. I, always played sport. I just wasn't that great at them. I worked my ass off, but I was never like strong enough or big enough or fast enough. And it kind of, I guess a part of that was probably a start of it is like I was never in the top team or in the top boat or in the top whatever. So whether it was like a bit of a chip on my shoulder or the carrot being dangled going, you'll get there. I don't know if that kind of added into it. But once I got out, I knew if I just like, when you work, if you work and you work and you work, it's bound. As long as you don't throw the towel in, something's bound to give. And I kind of found running through my first year of sparking, being an electrician, I was actually a bit overweight, to be honest. I just wanted to lose a bit of weight. And so I remember heading out the door for like a 3K run. I could run, but I wasn't like, didn't do it because I wanted to head out for a run. I did it because I wanted to look a certain way, right? And kind of, I would have started probably in March of 2020, my kind of running journey. And by August of 2020, I ran my first 100K. So over the space of 5-6 months, I could hardly run 3K. And then I ran from Randwick in the eastern suburbs of Sydney all the way to the most northern point of the eastern suburbs of Sydney. And then back from, it was like 10 o'clock at night, got home at 8 a.m. that next morning. All I brought was a banana, a muffin, and 2 water packed, like things like 500 ml of water. And I remember like when I finished that, I think it was 8.5 hours it took me, or 9 hours. I got home and I was like, fuck, like the feeling I felt when I finished that, I was like, there's something to this. And it was just like the gradual feeling of that. So over that space of 5-6 months, I'd, ran 3K, 5K, 10K, 21, 42, 60, 80, and I've got that 100 done. I was like, where can this go? Like, where can I do this?
It's a pretty short time frame to get to this kind of different
Very
distance. Was there any, that first 100K, was there any cameras, social media, was there anything around it? Just you going out there and getting it done?
Not a fucking thing. And I'll have it on the record. That's probably why I don't do many podcasts, is that if I could do this without social media, if I could raise the money, get people moving and live, make a living, no one would know my name. But the trade-off of these 3 things is that I'm known. That's okay.
You now got your face on the front of a RTD milkshake. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know like it does sound a bit odd because I think a lot of people pursue being known as opposed to pursue a certain goal.
I mean, I think there's a large portion of people that do that, but I think, we'll come on to your kind of charitable efforts. 100,000 in 2020. How old are you? 24, right?
25 now.
So at 20 years old, 21 years old, 2 million, whatever you said, second time around, 4 point something million more recently. So a lot of people do pursue being known, but I think your reason why, your purpose is deeper than that, right? It's
For sure.
It's about the greater good. I want to come on to your motivations for the charitable stuff, but let's just come back to the 100K. So, what was it? I mean, the weight loss journey thing is, I think, how a lot of people start. Self-confidence, weight loss, all those tangible benefits that come with physical endeavors.
Yep.
Whether it's a 5K, 10K, whatever it goes on to be. What was the mindset shift of 3K through to 100K in 6 months? Because not many people go that far that fast.
Yeah.
Particularly through the night.
Yeah. I'm a physio's worst nightmare for sure. No, I think again, I'm a bit of a cowboy with these things. Like even my run across Australia, like I didn't really have that much of a plan. All I knew is I wanted to run 100K a day and get it done in this time. I didn't have a nutritionist on board. My coach I hardly really listened to him. I was just like doing it the way I wanted to do it. Right. And like, there's a lot of lessons in that as well. But I think people want the answer always. They just go, oh, if I listen to this podcast, if I buy this, if I do this, that will give me the answer. If I go to this event and listen to this person speak, that will give me the answer. But the answer truly comes from us. It's like, dive in, have a go, and you'll find out real quick that that's not the right way to do it. And that's the only way I've learned. I've listened to people and I've taken advice, but when it comes to it, you're never going to learn more than you learn by doing it yourself.
It brings me back to last week. I was we had a summit, and there was a sports psychologist on the stage giving a talk, and it was all around mindset shifts. So if you're currently thinking or stuck in this position, you just need to reframe it and look at it in this position, right? It wasn't about, because a lot of people in the room were suffering from overwhelm. Yep. And they said they're at their capacity. So it was all about, like I say, a mindset shift, looking at things differently, and perhaps a different way of acting. And the first question post him finishing his conversation, this talk, was, is there a book on this that I can go and read? So it was like more consumption. Is there somewhere I can go and learn more about this thing you're saying, rather than just take what he delivered for an hour and going, oh, I just need to go and fucking do.
Try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't know why. I think potentially watching my old man, like my dad, kind of just do things as opposed to sitting around talking about it. He was always a doer and then speak later, as opposed to a speaker and do later. And so watching that was like a big one. It's like, you've just got to put one foot in front of the other. And so, yeah, the natural progression of 3K to 100K over that kind of time wasn't probably the way I should do it. Definitely wasn't the 10% each week rule. But once I finished that 100K, I remember I got home, all through the night. It's 3 a.m. when I hit the furthest point, which was 50K away from where I'd started. No buses at that time. My phone was dying. There was no point getting an Uber. Cost me friggin' $140 on the way home. So that was like, you've got to get home. You've just got to find a way home. And like having all of 400 calories in your packet, in your vest, and you've burnt over 8,000. I didn't carb load. That's stuff I'll learn down the line, right? And when I got home, the joy and the feeling of completing something through sheer grit and biting down and getting it done was like a feeling that's the feeling I chase every single day of my life. And in these big events that I've chosen to do, that is all that is. It's got nothing to do with, again, a look at me thing. It's like but I know people will watch because they are drawn to someone who's seeing that this is what they want to do, and that people just can't get enough of it. When someone's like putting themselves on the line, failure or win, it doesn't matter. They want to watch because this person's pursuing something so viciously. And that's kind of, again, so the 100K happened, and then I went, oh, well, a month later I did the 50 marathons in 50 days. So, I've never back-to-back even a half marathon at that point. So I was going to do 50 marathons in a row.
Was that a conscious decision to run through the night, right? Where did that come from? Just, I want to make it as hard as possible?
Yeah, that was one of the things, because I had a full working week. I worked, from Monday to Friday, finished at 4:30 p.m. that afternoon on the Friday. And then I was like, I'll have a quick nap and I'll see. That should be good. Couldn't sleep because I was so amped up about the fact I was about to run to Palm Beach and back. And yeah, it would have been by 8 o'clock I was up, would have had a piece of toast and I would have headed out the door. Yeah. And then yeah, the sleep deprivation part, like that's a whole nother element. which I'm, no one's ever mastered. The body will shut down eventually without sleep. So, but in that time, it was only a 100K run. It wasn't like a 12-day bonanza on a track. But yeah, just fueled the fire, mate. Fueled the fire.
How'd you? So the 50 and 50, which is kind of the next endeavor. What was the catalyst of the 50? Like, what? Does it just sound cool? Sound right? Sound like enough of a challenge?
Yeah. So I looked up because I was like, I thought I wanted to run 100 mile, and then I was like, I think a lot of people that's a natural progression. What's something I can do that's a bit loose? And heard Dean Karnazes in America. He's like a pretty well-known ultramarathon runner in America. He did 50 marathons in 50 states of America in 50 days. And then I heard Iron Cowboy did 50 Ironmans, 50 states, 50 days. And I was like, why don't I I'll do 50 marathons in 50 days, but I'm going to work at the same time just to make it a bit harder. So I'll have 8 to 10 hours a day spent on the tools doing nothing. Like, it was kind of like a really cool, almost stoic philosophy I had to kind of take on, in that you can't control the fact you have to work. You have to be here, right? So accept it, acknowledge that you've got to be present. And then when, because all I was thinking about was, fuck, I got 42K for this. I got 42K tonight. And I was, slipping in things I probably should have been being a bit more careful about, like working on live cables. But it taught me to be like, well, you can't control something in the future. You can't worry about things in the past. All you can be is right now, the present. It's all you've got. So until then, it's all just hasn't even happened. Who knows what's going to happen at work?
This was a month post 100K, right? You said there's no notoriety at the 100K. No. Was it beginning to build by the 50 and 50? Was there any thought for you to try and publicize this or put it out there? Or was it just...
Yeah, I put it out there, and my goal was to raise $3,000 at the start. And I remember when I put that out, I think someone donated $3,000 within like 3 minutes. So I'd hit my goal and I was like, oh, fuck, I should probably put that up. Didn't know people, because I, asking people for money when I was like, I don't know, it was a weird one for me. I was like, oh, well, I'll see if people actually get behind it. If they don't, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I guess like my close friends would come and they'd run a bit. But by like day 40, I probably had 20, 30 people rocking up to run majority of the marathons. And then the final day, I would have had maybe 250, 300 people in Centennial Park, like lining up. And it was really, really special. Had a news crew there, which again, it was all just me pumping it out of my social media, but not with the intention of going, look at me. It was more like, hey guys, I'm doing this thing. If you want to watch, get along. If not, just donate and piss off. And then, yeah, it kind of just evolved. And I remember I finished that and I was like, that's when I made that decision. I was like, I want to do this. Like this, I need this to be a career. How do I make that happen? And naturally, like you'd go, fuck, you've either got to be a fast marathon runner or a fast ultra marathon runner to pursue it as like an elite athlete, I guess. Or you kind of go down the path of like similar to a big wave surfer that isn't on the surf league, right? They just go and take these huge big waves and people get around it because it's hectic, and all of a sudden they got sponsors here or there. So that was kind of my goal, was like, why don't I just do big fucked things? And there's a chance that people go, fuck it, we're going to back him. And yeah, it kind of just evolved. And the thing is, I've always stayed true to that little kid who ran to Palm Beach and back. It's always been because I want to do and see what I can put myself through, what I'm capable of doing. I want to feel that feeling of like, oh shit, am I going to get through this? And yeah, as I said at the start, the first question, it's like, it's just been a natural evolution. And now, what I just finished was the hardest thing I've ever done.
What do you think makes you different though? Because again, 50 marathons in 50 days is no easy feat, but there's a lot of people out there that have done things that are more impressive, than that.
Yep. What
made you different then for people to get around it, give you the money? There's something else, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
I reckon that's a question to ask everyone else, because I don't think I'm...
Good answer.
Yeah. And I've asked that to people about it as well. Like, why are there certain people that... It's like asking a comedian why this guy gets more laughs, even though you said the same joke. It's like...
Well, what you've gone on to achieve, right? It shows that you're built different. And I think the reason that you've gone on to achieve it is because of... obviously your mindset towards these things, but because you've gone out and put yourself in the fire. And many people stumble at that first hurdle of putting themselves out in the fire, right? You went and did it 100K after 6 months running 100K through the night without anyone knowing, like that there's someone that's built different. And people stumble at that part, but still at 50 marathons in 50 days, you hadn't quite proved yourself yet.
Definitely
that you
not.
can go on to be this person that you are today. So, I mean, I didn't expect you to be able to answer it because you can see you're a super humble dude, but there's certainly something there that there's a few outliers that go on to achieve massive things in this space, and you'll continue, no doubt.
I appreciate that.
But it's because there's a spark there. It's actually the intensity that you've spoke about. Well, the intensity you spoke with a couple of times since we started the pod is akin to a few other people. Yeah, you're very familiar, I think, with Will Googe as well, and I think he was the first person that brought me to know who you were. A few years ago, and I had him on the podcast. He was in the first series. And he talked. He's a great dude. I've known him for a number of years, so I've seen his journey come into this space. But he talks about chasing the dragon. He talks about that feeling that you just can't find anywhere else other than when you're in the fucking deep despair of an ultra endurance event. And you speak very similar about trying to chase that feeling. Yeah,
it's a. I was actually chatting to a really good mate of mine. His name's Tom Hunt. He's from the UK as well. He just completed the Arctic 6633 Ultra. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a, in the like northern Canadian, cold as shit, like minus 80 degrees, 670K. He did it in 6 days. Broke the record by 24 hours. Absolute psycho. Really good mate of mine. And I was like, what's that feeling? Like, explain the feeling of day 5, day 6. You've already got 800K in your legs, 850K in your legs, and you've still got that again. You've not slept. Your body's starting to fucking go in on itself. It's starting to, blow up. You can't eat. Your body's eating away at any muscle you've got. The sleep deprivation's really kicked in now. And you wake up like a fucking dog in a corner going, bring it on. Like, how do you get to that point? And explain that to me. And we kind of like have these conversations a bit. A lot of the time it's pretty simple conversation, but sometimes I sit down and I'm like, why do we chase that? Because we could be comfortable, we could be easy, it could be simple, could be, we can just get on with our lives and live an easy, happy one. But then you chase this thing, like you've chosen to go and take on this thing. There's something about that when you wake up and you see your family, all your friends there who are supporting you, the people who are in the depths with you, and you're just like, I have a almost duty to do this thing for not only me, not only those people, but every other single human being watching. That through everything they do, there's always hard times. We shouldn't have to wait for hard times to be like, hey, let's be tough. I think we have to throw them ourselves. And so, yeah, there's like this primal feeling when you're in those moments. It's like, well, you said you're here. You said, I'm going to do this. So find whatever the hell it is. And I think that's where you find out things about yourself that you could never even dream of without doing it.
You've started chasing this feeling at a very young age compared to a lot of people I know, the people that you've mentioned.
Yep.
Does that worry you that, where does it end?
It goes out like, if I get to 50 and I've like done 6 more things and I'm in fucking not in a good way, I'm okay with that. Because like, I don't know if I'm going to get there. I don't know. Like, one of my favorite Stoic philosophies is like, the future has not happened. The past is done. All you have is right now. And so the person who's lived a long life or the person who's lived a short one, it's both the same because they're dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't get the future. It actually doesn't exist. All we have is right now. All we have is this moment. So I want to spend it feeling primal and feeling like I can take on the world and finding out things about myself in that process that, I wouldn't. So I don't really think about the future, Ned, because I actually try and live my life. There is a bit of sweat going on here. I actually try to live my life by the milk bottle date. It sounds ridiculous, but by every 2 or so weeks, as long as I, have a plan, you can't not have plans. You've got to obviously, forecast and plan for things in the future and set up your life. But, in and around that, it's like, what can I do today to make me feel those things?
I resonate, bro. It's a bit of a running joke with people close to me, particularly inside our businesses, because I literally work with what's right in front of me. Like if you ask me, even to the point of like tomorrow, like I just can't plan that far ahead because I just want to kick the fucking shit out of
what can we do
out of today.
Yeah. There was I think Chris Williamson's like that as well. Where that's what I really love when I was talking to him. I was like, he's not with all the busyness and with you as well. You've got so much going on in your life, but it's also so cool to see someone who's so right there and then with you. Like you're messaging me straight up. Like there's no, I'll send this off to someone to sort it out and I'll do. It's just like bang, bang, bang. I'm the exact same. It's like even tomorrow, like I wanted to set up the day tomorrow, and I'm like, no, fuck it, Ned, just go and do the thing, go and do the podcast, like get on with it. It's it's a good trait to have, I think, being present.
You mentioned it's actually what I wanted to bring up later, but we're here. So you mentioned learning about yourself. Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself?
What have I learned about myself?
You seem very self-aware, right, and comfortable in who you are.
Yeah, I'm probably too comfortable in who I am. I think that's one thing, is that I am so okay with my own presence, in that it probably makes me more happy to not be with too many people, or like constantly need to be spending time with other people. But I think that actually allows you to be, a good person in a relationship, or a good person for other people, if you're okay being on your own instead of being dependent on others in order to fill that void. Self-awareness is a big one for me. What else? I think like we really, our limits are imposed by the fact that someone else has said something. I think there's a lot of, especially in Oz, we just chatted about it, tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, it seems big here, and I hear a lot of rugby players from New Zealand talk about it as well, post their career. Like they're heroes when they're playing, and then once they're done, it's like...
pull them down.
Yeah.
Pull them down. Yeah, which is absurd, but it's never really when... It's not even just when you're doing well. It's like, God forbid you have a go. You know what I mean? God forbid someone puts themselves out there and says, I'm doing this. Even like, usually that's the place where people go, yo, mate, good on you for doing it. And I think when it starts to threaten people, they just go, nah, because it lets them think, it makes them remember that they didn't do it, or they haven't taken that leap themselves. The best thing I've learned throughout this last probably year is like, that is just a direct reflection of them. It's got nothing to do with you. And like, at the end of the day, if you can kind of look at it from a bit of a bird's eye view on the whole thing, like we're just fucking monkeys on a planet doing a thing, dude. So like, who cares about their own insecurities? Like, let it go. It's all good. But you also have to go through that to understand that it's not you, because in the moment when someone's telling you you're not this, you're not that, it can hurt because you think it's you, but it more often than not isn't.
It's interesting. We were at dinner with a guy called Benny Seaman. Do you know Benny Seaman?
I know Benny, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to record with him later in the week, but he was saying the same thing, right? He's saying like, in Australia, if I said I'm going to go run a marathon, people are like, what the fuck are you doing that for? And he wouldn't even wear his medal post Sydney Marathon because it's like people would just take the piss. Whereas in New York, once you run the marathon, you can like get free food with the medal.
Yeah, you're a hero.
I think that's the part of the why America is so endearing to people like you and I, is because it's like the land of abundance. People are always people have got your back. Like everything is like people are out there looking to achieve. I think I'm quite fortunate, and maybe yourself also, that the circles that I move in, the sorts of people that I like to associate myself with, and things that I'll consume on social media, it's all my kind of people, right? So yeah, UK is very similar in terms of a mindset to what you've said here about people wanting to tear you down. They don't mind you doing well, but it's just make sure you don't do better than them, right? Because it's going to be a problem sooner or later. Let's fast forward to the next big challenge, right? So you've gone 50 and 50. and we start talking about the Perth to Sydney. Was that something that had already been done by someone? Was there a record there that you wanted to start to, look, I'm going to go after people's records and things?
Yeah, so I had that in the back of my mind. It was 43 days was the record, held by a Kim Herkimes, a German fellow. And this is the kind of where I started seeing that people don't like young tackers or people who aren't ready go and attempt something so grand, so big, so bold.
The running endurance space is bullshit like that, right?
It's so gate-kept, and there's purists, and you've spoken to Ross Edgley before. He sent me a beautiful message on this. Like I said, because he cops it as well in the swimming space because he's not the
stereotypical
swimmer. And God forbid you do something that isn't don't be in line, buddy. Like, how dare you not follow what we all do? And the purists are great because they make the sport what it is, right? But they're gatekeeping people who try and uphold these, who try and make you feel less because someone else did it exactly this way. The bloke who has the record did it this way. So if you haven't done 25 years of running and all these endurance things and have a X amount of time on a marathon, then you're not worthy of attempting it. And so when I did it, I was that naive, that like dumb about it. But I think that shows courage and almost bravery and taking on something that big, right? Because it's also going to show if I don't do it and I fail miserably that I failed in front of everyone. So there's like something else really cool in that too. And like very few people are willing to fail tremendously in front of people because it's like you've failed. And I think there's something so pure in that because I'm not going out there to fail. I'm going out there to win or die trying. And in the die trying part, I've found the lessons there are way more important than getting the best, most seamless breaking of a record. Everyone will be like, "Oh, great." I think in the troubles and the the tough moments of like, what do we do? Do we throw in the towel because the record's unattainable, or do we keep fighting and see what we can do in this next period? And that's kind of what happened in this Oz run.
Yeah, I mean, there's a super fine, and I love that. But there's a super fine line, right? If I was to be one of those purists, which I'm certainly not.
Yeah.
Between something that's incredibly inspiring because you've gone out and given it a go versus like and towing the line of being disrespectful,
completely unattainable.
Yeah. So, 4 years into the sport, or not even 4 years in, is it just fucking the size of your balls that you're like, no, I can. What gives you the confidence? Because of course you want to do something that there is a high risk of failing. Otherwise it doesn't fit in with this kind of like maverick outlier, kind of lovable rogue that's not going to go down the purest route of the sport, but you're going to sit adjacent to it. Versus just being, because there are a number of people in this space right now doing very watered down versions of what you've achieved that have no right to do it.
Yep.
Fully. And back then you probably had no right to do this. So how do you make that up in your mind as to like, that's the one?
Because you're right, they don't get questioned as near as much, yet they still do it. And that's the hard part for me is like, I can see it from both lenses. I can see how someone from that can go, "Oh, how dare you? You've got no history in it." But I am of the opinion that if some human being can do something through sheer, if someone doesn't have the ticker, right? Someone doesn't have that do or die attitude, but they have the 20 years of experience and they know they're capable of running 80K a day. That's very different to someone who's willing to die, who knows they can run 100K and maybe back up another 100K. So what if that kid who's run 100K before and then ran 80K the next day, what if he has a willingness to die out there, a willingness to literally leave nothing to chance out there, yet he doesn't have the years and years and years? I think that's a pretty good matchup. And that's what I kind of take on. But you can't go in there not willing to die or not willing to leave it out there and get chop it out of there and not have the K's in your legs. They have to. And I'm almost concerned about what happens when I do have the K's in my legs over the years and years and years and years of it. that's exciting. But I might also, I know I'm somewhat relatable at 25 to the younger kids. I know at 50, I'm not going to be relatable to my age people right now. So I have almost a duty to do what I'm said I'm going to do, in that I want to get people moving. I want to get people up and about. I also want to raise money, and no one's going to listen to the 55-year-old going, I'm running across again. You know what I mean?
It's interesting because you mentioned Ross, when I started talking to him, there was one of the events that he did, we had to get pulled out the water, and it was very apparent that he had become a danger to himself.
Yeah.
Because he was just willing. I don't think he was necessarily willing to die. I don't think he was going out there looking for that, right? But he didn't know when to stop.
Exactly.
And so his partner and his brother now have to become
make the decision.
Yeah, they have to be his
full
safety jacket.
Full body goosebumps. That's like my mum and my physio, exactly those two people. Because I'm not capable of making those decisions once I get past that point of no return.
And this is what I struggle with Ross, and I struggle with it with you, because you mentioned it's just a chip on your shoulder, right? You said you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder, probably have a chip on my shoulders, the words I think you used.
Then.
Yep.
Yep.
A chip on your shoulder doesn't manifest to a place where you're ready and willing to die for the cause. So why is it so important to you?
Yeah, I think it was a chip on the shoulder potentially back then with like it's definitely not that. That's not motivation at all. That was at the start, but then I think through the doing of these things, I think it's the purity and the primal and the back to, I can only assume what it would be, what it was like being in a tribe and you're the leader heading out and there's something attacking you. You have to fight it, or everyone there dies, or you have to kill something in order to feed everyone. Like that's your role. And I think, in the 21st century, the way we live now, everything's so easy, and it's just like, I think we're going out and chasing that, and we all have it in us, or some of us do, where we want to seek, we want to horizon seek, we want to, we've kind of lost it. And so I'm trying to probably find these things. And so with the 100K run a day, like running across Australia, it's all that was. It was never like and so that decision completely trumped anyone's disbelief that I could do it.
What did you have to do there that probably needed to be a high level of sophistication around nutrition, planning, preparation? You're smiling, so maybe not, but yeah. What were you learning there about this kind of multi-stage 100K a day, the elements I'm sure running across Australia are not favorable? Was there anything that you probably learned as you were doing there, but did your understanding of this sport and what it took in terms of preparation, strategy, did it start to improve?
Yeah, I would say you only really learn the lessons of doing something by doing the next thing. You never really, like even through the 50, I could have finished and I wouldn't have been able to adapt anything. You know what I mean? If I haven't done the Australia run, then I wouldn't have been able to use any lessons I learned from the 50 marathons. So I knew if I'm spending 10 hours a day on the tools, not running, and I'm still running 42K in 4 hours, then I have double and a half that to get another 60K. Sure, I can do that. So I learned the lesson that there's a lot more time in a day. Yes, physiologically, if you don't get sleep and you don't get this, you don't get that, you're going to slowly deteriorate. But I think I still was very cowboy. I would even say up until this run around the track, I'm still very not clever about the things I do. But I learn a lot through not clever, through starving myself in runs, through not hydrating properly, through, although majority of my runs I do well hydrated, well fueled, there's still an element of like, I'm just going to run this because I don't want to, or I'm going to do this because it's an extra bit I can do. It's like with the Oz run, definitely I was way more naive and way more stubborn, I think. I'm very stubborn, but I was way more naive, where I knew I wanted to do this and I knew that this is what was going to happen, but everything else is all going to be news to me. I didn't realize the road trains on the highway were going to be such a impactful thing on me. The lack of food, the scarcity of food, quality food. I was eating pub meals most of the nights because I was, in crappy seed oil things that truckers eat, right? Like it wasn't, fresh fruit and veg every night. It was like, just eat what you can get. And then the lack of sleep, like I was, running in a very hot period of our like Australian, like near our summer really. And trying to sleep, my body core temp was so high. So I'm, for the first 11 days, I didn't sleep more than 2 hours a night. And I still got 1100K in that first 11 days. And then and that's the lessons I had to learn, in that maybe if I took 5 more years of training, I might have been able to break the record. But
I think it's that blissful ignorance, right, that we spoke about, that if you don't have that blissful ignorance, you're probably waiting 25 years to do all the training before you give it a go, right?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. There is never, ever, ever a right time to start. And everyone waits for it. They go, if I just do this, if I just have enough money, if I just get this thing, if I just have this, it's like that shit's not going to get there, because you'll get to that point. You go, if I just double that, if I just have this, it's like never going to come. And that's like my whole messaging is like, just fucking go, just dive in, do the damn thing. You'll find out way more than waiting for the right time.
I'm smiling because it's a completely different context. But me coming over to Australia was something that I've like dreamed of for 15 years. I thought it would happen in around my rugby career, with maybe a rugby trip that was coming over here, or post rugby, get out to Australia. Then the business happens, wife, kids, etc. And this time around, I was like, fuck, I'm just going to go for 6 days and just see what's up.
Yeah.
And once you do it, you realize that like,
why didn't I do this?
Why did I not do it earlier?
Yeah.
I mean, very different context to running across Australia, but
yeah,
I think the Australia event was where I first got drawn into everything about you. I remember watching your stories every day, and the moment you ran the finishing piece where you ran into Bondi, yeah, just fucking insane.
Yeah.
Was that where there was real momentum behind you as a kind of personal brand, your story, the following, all that kind of thing? Because, like I say, that's where I think a lot of my crew and people over in the UK started to know your name and know what you're about.
Yeah, that's definitely where it, for me, became real, that I would be able to do this forever, for sure, or for as long as forever is for me. But I'd never, with the first 45 days, had any concept of what that would look like. I didn't really even know until I was probably 5K from Bondi.
Did you have to raise funds for that event to get it going? How did you generate the money to live out on the road?
Oh yeah, I had sponsors, heaps of partners. I have a really amazing team that kind of, I guess, just really got around me and thought, oh, this bloke's the real deal. Let's support. I had partners that funded it pretty well. So I had my Puma, which I'm with now. Just legends, the Australian team. And then I had a few others there that aren't along on the journey anymore, but they funded that run essentially. But yeah, like I didn't make any cash out of it. It was all, any money we made for that was to fund it. And then we raised the 2.6 million that went straight directly to the homelessness charity. But yeah, running into, like, I left Perth. There was probably 20 people at the start line at 10 to 5 in the morning. And there wouldn't have been a car that didn't honk by the time I hit New South Wales. And by the time I hit Sydney, it was like, there was helicopters above me. There was, they were shutting down roads for me to run in. And you don't shut down Bondi Beach Road to run in, like that doesn't happen. And so this thing that was built through authenticity, being myself, regardless of what I was supposed to do. It was the inability to say no and quit, because there was moments there along that run the whole way. We raised $350,000. That's when my shin like completely gave way. I'd never felt this feeling in my shin before. I thought, oh, it's fucked. It's cracked. It's whatever. Got a scan 3 days later, started running with a device on that pulled my leg up. Ran 700K that next week. And I think people watching that just like, fuck, what's going on here? Why is this bloke doing this? Meant that we raised that money. And yeah, when we hit Bondi, it was like, I wish I was like a little puppy dog who's never seen the city before. And it's like, what's going on? It was like tens of thousands of people just running, leaving their cars in the street, like in people's car parks, just to get down there to see the finish line. And then it just started this this whole new world.
Take me back to a couple of moments where you said that, was there ever a time during that Australia, Perth to Sydney that you thought you were going to quit? Like what does Nedd Brockmann quitting, what does that look like in the moment? Like what has to be going on?
I never once thought I was going to quit. I thought it was going to take a lot longer at points, but I never. Quitting to me is knowing you have something left. I mean, that's the definition, right? Knowing there's something there, but you've chosen to not.
So you just fucking crawl if you couldn't.
Oh, mate, without a doubt. And I think people sometimes go, oh, righto. But like, this comes back to that decision thing. Is like very few people actually make decisions anymore. They make statements, and then when it gets hard, they fucking, there was a reason to stop, but that's not making a decision. That's making a statement and not committing to anything. I think
so power.
Yeah, well, it's a Latin. The decision is deci, means to kill off anything else. So there is no alternative with a decision. It's like, I'm going to do this podcast. We're doing the podcast. I'm not going to have a coffee cup. I don't do it. That's a decision, and your whole life will then be impacted by those decisions. But that's one you've been willing to make. So fucking do it. And that, when it comes to the big picture, like a run around a track or a run across Australia, like in the lead up to this run around the track, for a whole year, I made the decision, I'm going to have a cold shower every day. No warm showers, not allowed any, unless I run over 100K in a day. So for like 3 training runs, I had a warm shower. But the rest is like, no one's watching you on those moments. Like no one's in my fucking bathroom watching if I turn the cold shower on. It's just me. And I know I'm going to let myself down. Like, you know what I mean? You're the only person that's going to let themselves down. So for a year, I did that. For a year, I took the stairs. I still do it. I'm not allowed to take a lift. Well, not today, but in that period of before the event, when I make that decision, I wasn't allowed to use a lift. I had to use stairs, and there's always stairs in a building. So I would, I might come to a speaking gig and they go, oh, we just got up the lift. I go, well, where's your stairs? And they go, oh, it's on the other side of the building. I go, no worries. Can you take me to the stairs? So I stuff around all these people to commit to my decision. And so when I got to the run, well, similar to run around Oz, but run across Oz, run around the track, I had a moment, day 3, I was like, is committing to these little decisions in my life actually impacting this right now? Like, is these tiny little micro decisions actually aiding this decision to finish this run around this track? And I remember like night 3, I was like, if you slipped on every one of those, every once a week or once a month, you just had a nice warm shower because you really wanted a warm shower. Or you just had a coffee cup because someone you just met said, oh, I'm grabbing coffees. I'm going to get you a coffee. And you just give it to me and I can't explain it to you. It's easier if I just go, yeah, I'll drink the coffee. But I had to say to these people. And so when I got to that day 3, I go, yeah, because the alternative is that every month you did a little warm shower. So on day 7, when it's really fucking hard and you don't want to get up, it's like, well, I raised 2 mil, so it's okay to end. I'll get 700K, it's fine. Like that doesn't come into it. And so these tiny, tiny little decisions that you commit to in the lead up to the big one mean that when you're fucked out there in the middle of the Nullarbor playing across Australia in 40-degree heat, you don't entertain anything else than to keep moving forward. And so hopefully that's what is going to keep continuing in my life. And I feel like when I finish in a big event, I let that slip a bit to just see if it's okay to just, take a coffee cup. But I can't because it's just not in me to do that.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh.
So no quit. There's just, it won't happen.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about that, like no negotiating with yourself once you made a decision that's so pure. But you're right. It's those little daily decisions.
Yeah.
That's training, right? That's training.
Yeah.
You're training yourself for the main event. And if you're always deciding to take the tough route in training, those little things compound that when shit actually gets tough and you need to make a decision, you're going to go with the one that's going to, bring the fruits of that hard work. And
I always find those little decisions in my training are far more important than the physical, like, oh, I've got to make sure I hit 158 heart rate or one fucking, like, they're all important. They're great. And they're for the actual physical adaptation, you might get fitter or you might get this. But in terms of that gritty, tough, how am I going to get through this shit? it comes down to those tiny little decisions when no one's watching, every single time.
Let's dig into the 1,000 miles.
Yep.
So we run from Perth to Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's some downtime after that.
Yep.
When do you start conceptualizing 1,000 miles? Was this there was a record on the line as well? Was someone else had done it?
Yep.
Took inspiration from it? Were there other things on the table in terms of what you wanted to do?
Yep. So the first, I wanted to do the UK. I wanted to run the length of it.
When are you doing that?
When am I?
Yeah.
I'll see. But I remember, because it's like 1,500K or something, isn't it? It's like 900 miles, 950.
Yeah. The Land's End to John O'Groats, right?
Yeah. And I was like, that's cool. That would be fun because it's over a shorter time. Like 11, 12 days. And then I was like, oh, I wonder where like 1,000 mile, what's 1,000 mile? And then New Zealand, I think, is 1,000 mile or maybe 2. Anyway, I was just like thinking all these things up, and then I was like, what's the 1,000 mile record? And that's Giannis Kouros did 1,000 miles in 10 days, 10 hours on road in New York. And I wanted to go run 1,000 miles around Uluru, which is our like rock in the middle of the country. But it's like so hot. It's a 10K loop, but it's like so hot out there. And if you like, it's nightmare stuff. So then I was like, oh, maybe we'll have a look at the track and see if we can do that. And it kind of just kept building. I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. This is what we're going to do. And then that was probably 10 months out from actually doing it. And then, yeah, just committed to it and I was all in.
I mean, 1,000 miles around a track is mind-numbing.
Very traumatic.
I was completely encapsulated by the whole thing. There's like a vivid memory, I think, where you come out into the track and you just fucking scream. When the record was slipping away from your hands, it doesn't seem as though it's ever really been about the record for you, because like you said, it's just win or die, right? Mm-hmm. But when the record was slipping out of your hands, how's your mindset towards that? Like, do you feel demoralized? Do you get beat up about it, or it's immaterial?
No, it was important because I want to make like it very clear that there was not one part of me that didn't think I could do it. Like, I knew I could get that record, and
it looked pretty likely from the first couple of days, right? Because you went out hot.
Yeah, and I like, give me 20 years, and of me building and building. I'll go and do that thing, no worries. But that's not what this has ever been about for me. Pursuing these things, I tell everyone, you always make sure that what you're doing scares the living fuck out of you. If you think it's attainable, you're not going hard enough. Like, I think it has to be somewhat like, oh, could I do it or could I not? Like, it shouldn't be, I know, like, hear me out. Let me just try and explain this. It shouldn't be like, oh, I've done 8 days of 100K a day. I know I can get 10. Like, it should be that, like, you quit, like, your nuts should be in your throat when you're saying it, because you know how hard this is going to be to get it. So when you say it, when you put it out there, verbally announce it to everyone, you should be shrieking in fear the fact that it's going to happen. It shouldn't be like, oh yeah, cool, now I'll get all the accolades from announcing it. I'll get all of this. It's like that's the scariest part of all of this, is like announcing it, because it means I have to fucking do the thing. And so when I put it out there, it was like, I knew I'm going to leave everything out there to get it. So regardless of what happens, I either get the record and it's great, but I don't think anything's going to change if I did get it. I think it would all still be the same result, same outcome, same person, no better, no worse. It's just a flag in the pole to say I did it. There's, in the pursuit of the goal, in the pursuit of this record, I think the person along the way to get there and the things you have to go through to get there is 40 times more valuable. And so when I got to day 5, I was 810K in 5 days, 6 hours. So I was on track. And I hit that 5 days. But what you were saying about Ross and his partner and mum or whoever, I got to the end of day 5 and I was about 840K in 5 days, like 12 hours. I'm sitting down at the table. I couldn't work out how to pick up this spoon to eat the food in front of me. I could
Brain
not.
couldn't work.
Nah, it was fully mush. Like not even mush. It was like, there was a peanut in there, and it was trying to make the decision. But a peanut's a peanut. It's got nothing in it, and so I'm like, couldn't even speak to get someone to pick it up for me, to feed me, to any. I couldn't even. None of that was happening. And so mum was watching this. About 15 minutes passes of me just sitting there blankly. And she goes, you either have to get moving or go to bed because you're wasting time. And I went,
is that whose voice? Because I watched the promo because there's a film coming out, right? Is it?
No, it would have been a clip, but it would have been mum.
Yeah. Was that a promo clip that I've seen?
Yeah, it was on my socials. Yeah.
For a documentary that's coming out. Or is it?
No, it would have been with Puma. Was it a Puma post?
I just saw a clip and there's a woman that says, I was going to say, who is that woman?
That's mum.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, ballsy.
What a fucking savage.
Oh yeah, she's got plums. Yeah, and she goes, "You going to bed?" And I went, "Oh, thank fuck!" Like she's made a decision. So I've gone to bed in my didn't take any strapping tape off, didn't take my shoes off, put a hoodie on. I've laid in my bed, and I remember, I've never that was the closest I've ever been to death by far. I, without a doubt, could feel it all. I have not slept. The data on my sleep, my HRV was 1. I was chest infection, injuries starting to really come through. No sleep, nose is bleeding.
I remember it.
Throat's closing up. Everything's going to shit. And I'm laying there and I'm like, oh no, this is it. I said to mum, I was like, can you sit out the door? Because I reckon I'm going to, something's going to happen. She goes, yeah, no worries.
Sit out the door, as in outside?
Sit outside the door and wait for me to yell out to you. If I can. And she, 20 minutes later, I've just freaked out. I'm trying to scream, couldn't scream because my throat's closing up. And I yelled, worded out, Mum, nothing. I'm like, fuck, she's gone. I'm done. And I was like, just take a breath. It's fine. Everything's fine. So I'm okay, I'll be okay. They're outside making a decision because they know what I'm doing to myself. Because I would just headed out there and gone again. Just death march. And she knew that my capabilities were going. Everything was, I need sleep. It's the only way to get through this. So she'd come in storming with a wheelchair, goes, get in the wheelchair. We're taking the shower, you're getting 6 hours of sleep. And I was like, oh, thank fuck. Because up until that point, all I was doing was breaking this record. I was, again, like a fucking vicious dog in the corner going, I've got to kill, I've got to do this. And so the whole team could see I was incapable of stopping. So they had to make that call for me. And so in that moment, the record, it hardly even came into consideration because of the kind of scale of how bad this was getting. And then once I had the sleep and once I it was almost like a weight off my shoulders in just to get the thing done. And so it was a bit of a shift in energy. It was a bit of a shift in my own, I think the antibiotics were kicking in. There was the chest infection was starting to lift. My toes were getting a bit better. And then I was like, right, you've got to just nut up and get this thing done. But I got 1,000K done in 7 days, which 1,000K week's pretty big. But yeah, again, I would love to have broken that record, but I don't believe it's changed anything by not.
What's when you're sat there and you can't get the spoon, you can't even talk, and you can't get your hand to work to pick up the spoon. What is alarm bells going off in your brain? Is there any feeling?
Nah, it's the best.
Panic.
Best. I think that's that's what I want to get. That's that feeling.
Well, that was my next question: is why? Do you want to go back there? It's the point where you feel as though you're.
Bro, I hate to say how much I say it to people, not people, but to my close family and friends that if I can go, this does sound naive and it sounds like a 25-year-old. It's, I'm just going to, and perspectives change and mine has forever. And I know if in 10 years time I meet the love of my life and she wants to have children, I'm sure that I will want to be around for my kids, right? But that hasn't happened. There is no future. Right now, if I can feel those things, because there is nothing in my life that makes me feel the way I feel there, like the existence in a very trying to just conform and go back to normal life and go out on a Friday and work a job and do those things it pales in comparison to what this feels like. And so if I can feel that and feel that and feel that and feel that, it is 100% my drug.
I remember, it feels like 3-4 years ago, someone said about when do you feel most alive? And for me, I feel most alive when I'm physically in the fucking hurt locker.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it would ever get to the extent where I'm on death's door. I'm like, yeah, this is where I want to. This is the feeling I want to chase.
Well, yeah, it is nuts because I can go and run a fast marathon and 32K, you're like, fuck, I'm hurting. But like,
it's probably because everyone else can feel that too, right? Not many people.
Exactly.
It's that 1%. Well, it's the 0.0001%.
Yeah.
Did you have any when you ran the 100K through the night? Did you ever think that you'd end up in that place where you're lying there, you had to put your mum outside the door because you feel as though your body's going to shut down 4 years later? Like, is that where you thought you wanted to end up?
Not at the time, but I was open to anything for sure. So like,
it's fucking scary that another 4 years, like where you're going to be.
But I think, yeah, I know. But I also, like, if you look at that too, from then we've also raised almost $9 million for a homelessness charity. I've started I think you'd do the same thing. You'd look back at where you started versus where you are now with everything you've done. And you've gone up, I've got this podcast, I've got this subs company, I've got these gyms, like, I think that's what's really cool is like, you've got to actually take a moment to appreciate what we've done and where it's going, because you will get caught up in the pursuit of it as opposed to the being present and being appreciative for what we do have. But
that's a nice point to pick up on. Do you show much gratitude? You spoke about that kind of like the past and the future not being relevant. Do you show much gratitude? Because it's something I need to work on.
I think by being present, you have to. I don't think you can be grateful without being present. Like, you have to kind of understand where you are in order to see what the people who've been around you and the people who've supported you and the things in order, it's taken in order to get there. So I think I am extremely grateful for where this is headed, and I don't ever want to get complacent in that, because I know you can, and I know, like, I feel very grateful that if I run around Centennial Park, I think every second person yells out and goes, "Go Neddo!" Like, I never ever want to take that for granted. I never ever want to get to a point where I'm like, "Oh fuck!" Like, stop yelling out, let me run, because these people, every single person that has followed me along on this journey has meant that we have raised that money, we have got people moving, and I'm able to continue to do this without having to be a Sparky, without having to pour coffees on a weekday,
Yeah, I mean, you had Izzy come run with you.
Yeah, the big dog.
Yeah, I mean, you become a celebrity, right? Like, not overnight, but in a short space of time.
F grade at that, mate.
Hey?
F grade.
Well, mate, you're on the face of a fucking Nedd's milk.
That's just shameless self promotion.
Is there anything about that?
Did you like the milk?
Yeah, amazing.
Terrific, hey.
Is there anything about, because you said that you do all of this without any fame, is there anything about that you particularly like? The fact that you now are a household name both here and overseas?
I think it's been built so now that I have the ability to, like, not an authority, but like I have a voice in that space. And I do feel and hope that I'm not taken as, it's not like, oh, here we go, he's going to try and, similar to the people you said, the people who put themselves out there, and it's like, you just have no reason to be saying you're going to do that, because we know you're not. Like, I want to hope that I've got enough
yourself
under the hood to say, you know what, yeah, he is going to do that, or he's going to die trying.
Let's bring it back to people who, there's a number of people that follow this that are out there doing their own challenges, right? I don't for a second think that people are ever going to get near to some of the stuff that you've done, but there are people out there, pushing this kind of without limits, stepping outside their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. You've gone against the grain with a number of things that a lot of people are looking for, as we've said. What's the perfect training program? What does what does the Whoop need to say?
Yeah.
How long out do I start? Like, is there anything now? I know you've got a running coach, but is there anything now from like a conventional training perspective, data, whoops, all that, and that you have to take advantage of, but also like pay a bit of attention to because of what you're putting your body through? Or are you I mean, you're only 25, right? So trust me, as soon as you get a little bit older, it's going to start falling apart.
Crack that back. Yeah.
But is there anything now that you have to put in place that you're aware of from like a principles of training standpoint?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned, although it's helped me get to where I am, is the importance of sleep. I knew that from the start, but I'd also built a life out of not sleeping. So it was a bit of a catch-22 one, right? Like, I've built this almost unwavering belief in myself by waking up at 4 a.m. regardless of what had happened the night before, regardless of the way I slept. It was just like I'd framed sleep as like this non-essential thing for a long period of time. But once you're done because the only way you can get through kind of a long multi-day event, in my opinion, because you're not going to get sleep. Sleep ain't coming. Your heart rate's going to be jacked. Everything's going to be cooked. You can't sit there worrying about not sleeping. You have to accept sleep ain't going to come. Put your feet up. If it's 4 hours of legs up, then it's 4 hours of legs up. It's a great way to look at it, right? But post-event, like I have been just getting as much possible sleep as I can. And I can see the impact that has on my body. Like I'll go to sleep sore and wake up fine, as opposed to going to sleep sore and waking up sore. Like you can, the physical thing is there. And like, I don't look too much into the data. I do, I just don't obsess over it because there's a lot of people that if they don't get 7 hours, their whole day is fucking ruined. It's like I think about Gladiator 2, right? I've just watched it. Like those guys when they go get some rest, it's like they're not going, fucking better get 8 hours. They're just sleeping. If they wake up, they got to move, they move. Like you can't do things that people don't do by doing what everyone else does. So yeah, I think the biggest one would be that I now sleep very well. My diet is way, way better. I think the fundamentals, obviously the sleep, train right, eat well. If you can nail those pretty well, 90%, you're 90% of the way there. And then you've got your supplements to aid that if you're not hitting those things in your well-balanced meal. And then in your training, it's like supplements, recovery, ice baths and saunas, I wouldn't say are the penultimate recovery. I would say if you can get an hour extra sleep and not go to your recovery session, I would get an extra hour sleep. But if you are getting 8 hours and you need that extra bit, then go have your sauna or ice bath.
Are you worrying about like, okay, I need to hit 100 grams of carbs every hour on these events? Is that something that you obsess over? Or
in the event, I'm trying my best, but the best food to eat is the one you can eat. And so 4 days in, it might be great to eat nuts or to get your fats and carbs up, but no one, like if someone goes, here's your nuts and you fucking can't eat another nut, you're not going to eat the nuts, are you? You're going to eat what is possible to eat. And so, yeah, there's a plan and there's a training mode and throughout my whole training and my carb loading, like all that has been definitely, way better now. But, yeah, I kind of, as I said, just love
I think that's what's so, I spoke earlier about what do you think is different to you back on the 50 and 50. It's this stuff, right? It's the fact that there's everyone that's out there telling you that you got to wear your whoop and you got to make sure HRV is this and you got to hit this supplement or this. You're just like, yeah, all that stuff's kind of important. But the thing that's really important is like, how far can you actually push yourself?
Yeah. And then I think we just get so caught up. And as you said, there's so many people telling us everything. We're so consumed by it all. We're so like, oh, well, if I haven't hit this, I won't be able to do this. And, which means that will come into the marathon you do. You'll go, oh, but my split's 5 seconds quicker per the first 30K. So I'm going to capitulate. It's like, well, you might not. You might actually be fine. Because in all of your training, it didn't matter because you just fucking nutted up and got on with it. Because nothing's going to be perfect. There's never going to be a right time to start. You just have to get on with it. And I think that if I can keep that in the front of my mind, every decision I make, everything I do, it's like, it's all well and good to have it all sorted and have your ducks in a row, but it's not always going to be the case. And that's how you get through things.
What's life like for you immediately post one of these events?
This time,
Because I imagine immediately post one of these events is the furthest away you're going to be from the near-death experience, right?
fully. This time was very different to the run across Oz. The run across Oz, there's the sticky sweat. The run across Oz was this. I ran into kind of this new life where I would go to the supermarket and get harassed for a photo, or I would, I'm going to events or going to speak to people or going to like all these things. And it was really exciting and really new. It was like this new world. And so that was great. And I was really appreciative of that and really grateful. But when I finished this one, it was very, very different in that I knew what had happened post Oz run, and I knew the road I could go down with that, and I could go to all these events and go to this and go to that. But that's not what it's about. I had to go through that to make sure that wasn't what it was about. So this time around, I tweaked out for about 7 days on my couch because I was in a very, very bad way in my brain. Soon as I finished the run, that final day I finished, I started at 4:30 the final day. I was 1,510K in. So I had I was 1,470 in. So I had exactly 100 mile. No, 1,440, sorry. Had 100 mile that final day. So I started at 4:30, finished at 6:30 the next morning. So I ran for 26 hours, got the 160K done because my knee was so cooked. I was running 200 meters, walking 200 meters, running 200 meters, walking 200 meters. Finished the run and I was like in complete shock. Went into the room that I was like sleeping in. I sat there for 3 hours just staring at this freaking table, just like what on earth just happened, trying to get all my strapping tape off because we'd locked my ankle down because it had just stopped working. It was like a stumpy leg. Like it was so edge. And I think I was just kind of perplexed at how hard it was. Like I thought it would be hard. I knew it would be hard. And I accepted that whatever the fuck came at me, I was going to do it. But I never in a million years thought it would be as hard as it was. Like I knew it would be so bad, but it was 10 times worse than that. And so trying to sit back and, I wanted to be happy with everyone. I wanted to enjoy a bit of it, but I just had no reprieve from the pain I was in. So I was like immediately after just in shock. Incredibly proud of myself, incredibly I took a lot of pride in the fact I did see it through, but the cost of that is not sleeping for 7 days, tweaking out on the couch, waking up and thinking I had to get back to lane 8, even though mum was next to me saying, it's okay, it's all fine, everything's fine. I go, I get what you're saying, not computing. I need to get back out there. Like I'd owed someone Ks because in order to get that done, you have to be wired like that. Like you have to be fucking psychotic. And then when you do it, you can't just turn it off. It's like this. Oh fuck. And then after about a week, I was like, okay, it's all over. It's all over. And that's when I just started sleeping a lot better. And I didn't make any, decisions on anything about my future. Like I was just like, no, if they really need an answer now, like a sponsor or go and speak here or there, I just was like, if they need an answer now, it's a no because I got to get back to health. But now I'm back running. I'm feeling quite grateful that I feel unscathed, touch wood. Like all my joints and bones are fine, but
it's crazy how the body bounces back, right?
It's insane, mate. It's the human body. If you can take your brain past that point where it tells you to jam it, like if you can just keep fighting, the body will do some wild shit to get you through. I think once you over the ledge of no return, the body just goes, let's go, boys. Like let's fucking go. And it'll stack up, but it will keep the score. Like it will, no doubt when you stop, keep the score of what you've done to it. And that's why I keep saying touch wood. I don't want to jinx it that I feel great right now because after the Oz run, I reckon 100 days before I could actually move my body properly. And my brain was still mushy. And anytime I went for a run longer than 20K, even though if I'd said I was going for an 18-kilometer run, all good. But if I'd said I was going for a 30, my brain would freak out. This psychosomatic response to a word was that my body would just shut down. It wouldn't let me do it. So I had to retrain my body to be able to go run a long distance again because of the trauma it would feel when I said I was going to do it.
I've done nothing of the sort, right, compared to you, but we ran a Transalpine, which was it was 260k through the Alps, and I'd never done anything multi-stage. So that sleep thing, I mean, hearing you talk about some of these elements, like the sleep thing was crazy. I remember just lying in bed 10 p.m. at night, having gone to bed. Yeah, my heart rate's still like 100 beats. I've been stopped for 8 hours.
Yep.
And my heart is just beating in my chest. And
it's trying to heal you.
I look at my breathing rate, and I'm just like panting.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to slow everything down, but then you start like panicking that you can't slow it down. Then you're in your head.
Yeah.
And so the sleep was crazy. The food thing you said there about like, with the best intentions by day 4, sometimes I didn't want to eat, couldn't eat. And then the biggest thing for me was coming back. People are like, oh, when are you getting back in the gym? And I was thinking, I'm back in on Wednesday, like 3-4 days off. Took me 3 weeks, like you say, the brain, the mush, like to just get to thinking and talking and working and crazy. So I can only imagine.
It's like that trauma response. It's like that, and it's, the greater it is, the worse it's going to be. And you just have to accept it. I don't think you can fight it. You just got to let it be. I kind of like it. I thought I'd like it more this period. I definitely haven't enjoyed it as much as I did last time. But I also like that through those crazy highs you get of finishing it, you also get these really fucked up lows. Like you never really feel those fucked up lows without those highs. So like, I kind of really like it. And this is where I get real, like learn a lot about myself even more in the lower times, because I get to write about like, why is my brain doing this to me? Like, why am I feeling this certain way? But I also know in those lows, I'll get these amazing highs again. So I just kind of take these as it is and try and work through them.
Let's touch again on the charity stuff, because raising over 9 million at your age is incredible, man. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, I think homelessness in general, no one should be. I think we're so fortunate in Australia here. We have access to a lot. We have great healthcare. We have a lot of amazing education. People slip through the cracks, and we've got 126,000 people here, which isn't in comparison to the States, as there'd be that many in LA alone. There'd be millions in LA alone. And so, yeah, I hate that someone is treated differently because of having wealth, having status, having whatever. We're all human beings and we all end up the same way. And homelessness is one that's often looked past because we think it's their fault. And if someone falls over in the street, we rush over to pick them up. If someone's down on the ground in the street with a raggedy old blanket over them asking for money, we walk straight past them. So the thing for me is I want everyone to be treated equally, regardless of status or anything. And if I can make people, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to end it. But I think if we can get more people talking about it, more people understanding that they are human beings, just you and me, exact same people, who just didn't have the opportunities we did, who didn't have the support systems that we did. And they're one week away from a paycheck or a whatever, and then all of a sudden they can't pay this, and it's like, well, I've got to move. I've got to get out of my house. And having a family, having kids, being a single mother with a child, like there's so many, I think 2% of homelessness is gambling, alcohol and drugs. 98% is domestic violence, housing affordability, like a multitude of things. And, they obviously lead down that path once you're homeless. But I just think everyone deserves the same opportunities in life, and at the very least, have a roof over their head, a bed to sleep in, and a meal, knowing where the next meal is going to come from. And so, with the money we've raised, it's going to go to so many amazing pathways for people to get back into the housing, get back to living their life. Hopefully it just starts and continues to create awareness around it, so we're more aware.
How close are you to where the money kind of gets spent?
Yeah, very close. So I chose Mobilize back before I did the Oz Run, because they're a small charity. I was like, oh, this would be really cool. I think if we can work together and have like a bit of an input, that would be amazing. And I think because we've raised so much, the most they'd ever raised prior to the last 2 years was $7,500 in a year.
Fuck.
And then the next year was 2.6. And then this year's about to be 6.
It's incredible, bro.
Yeah, it's insane.
I've also heard like you're a bit of a mental health advocate as well. Like, what part has that played in your life, mental health?
Yeah, I just think being open and honest about your feelings, whether you're really happy or you're really sad. I think just being vulnerable and being yourself is an important thing. I just think the mental health world is so much worse now because of the phones, these stupid freaking phones we all have. We've got access to everything and we meant to look a certain way or be a certain way. And instead it's flipped like these perceptions on ourselves. And so we have to like uphold a certain standard, or we're spending all this time like this, or I think there's no better way than to keep your mental health in check than to move the body and eat good food. And it comes back to, it's simple. It's like training like an athlete. You eat right, you sleep well, and you minimize your phone usage. You're going to keep it in check. But I think mental health is a very complicated thing, and we all deal with different things differently. You have a different view, I have a different view. But I think in general, if you can move the body, sleep well, and eat good food, you'll get through it.
There's a level of maturity about you that I wish the purists that we spoke about that throw shade would just to fucking appreciate. Because yeah, you're out there maybe doing stuff that they might see as disrespectful because you haven't earned the right, quote unquote, to go run whatever. But what you're actually doing off the back of it is far more than they'll ever achieve from breaking records.
Thank you, mate. I think that's what, when I look at myself in the mirror and question if what I am doing is disrespectful, or I know for a fact that it's just never been that. And it's always been the reason. Because when I started out doing these things, it was always with the purest intentions to see what I'm capable of and help people. And it's grown. Like I started this uncomfortable challenge thing for everyone off the back of my run. We had 25,000 people sign up and do 10 days of something uncomfortable for themselves. So every single day, some people would wake up and run 5K. Some people would go and speak to someone on the street. Some people were running 50K a day. Like it was, and they were raising money for Mobilize as well. And so these people are doing something hard, giving back and living their life. And so off the back of that, we have 25,000 people doing something hard and giving back. I think like, I want to build that out. I want to get people, like if I've got Australians every October doing something hard for 10 days, like that'll keep mental health in check, and that will keep people understanding that we should help others and give back without wanting anything in return.
So good. What do you have time for hobbies and interests? Is there anything? Mate. Yeah. What do you do outside of?
Oh, I thought you were meaning, do we have time for the podcast to talk about? Yeah, I like golf. Because it's similar in you can never get too good at it. You can always learn and learn and learn. Only play it in like my off year between an event because it's gets me out in nature, gets me doing something that isn't physically cooking me, just because it's the only way to kind of keep me in check. Otherwise, if I don't go out there for 5 hours, I'll go and spend it fucking burying myself. But I love reading. Like I read a lot of books and write a lot. Like I love writing, which has only really come about.
Your journals must be mad, by the way.
Yeah, they're psychotic, mate. It's not great. Sometimes like if someone came over and goes, "Oh, can I read?" Nah, you're not reading that. But I think it'll be a cool book.
Yeah, it will be a very cool book.
Yeah. Like this is what I was thinking here. But yeah, I'm open to anything. Like I love all kinds of music. I love all these. Like I never want to just funnel myself into the running's the tool to do these things. It's not I'm a runner. It's like the running's the tool I'm currently using to feel what I want to feel, push myself to the end and inspire people along the way. So it's not I'm a runner. I would hate to say I'm a runner because it's just not it. And that's why, yeah, I'm open to, if something opens, a door opens and I like the look of whatever's on the other side of it, then I'm going to run headfirst at that.
Talk to me about Nedd's Milk. We spoke about it briefly.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? And that's fucking pretty cool to have a ready to drink in all over Australia.
Yeah. It was built off the back of just drinking a lot of chocolate milk because it's one of the best recovery. Obviously now they're saying like the electrolytes in it as well is like the best form of recovery. You've got your protein, carbs, and electrolytes as well. So I obviously, like everything I do has an aspect of helping mobilize, raise funds. So every single bottle, we give back twice as much as any bottle of any milk company in Australia to our nominated charity, and we're a startup, so it's hard on profit and loss, but it's way more valuable than to just trying to make a big buck. But yeah, I made it because I know the running boom. I know that here in Australia we're up and about, getting moving, and I'm like, there's nothing better than enjoying a chalky milk as a reward, but also it's like scientifically proven to like help aid recovery. So that was kind of the idea. Again, I dived in head first, not really knowing the complexities of business. And it's never a right time to start a fucking chalky milk company, I'll tell you that. But 8 months down the line, we'd announced we've got a chalky milk, and we're in Woolworths, our biggest grocery market in the country, in over 800 stores. And yeah, I think just off the back of building what I've built, these companies are going, yep, we'll get you in, we'll stock you. And I'm very grateful for that. And I think that's, something to be proud of for sure. But yeah, I just want people enjoying the milk. I don't need anything more than that. I just want people frothing it.
Are you pretty active in the business side of that?
Yeah, massively. Because again, my name and face is all over it. There's no big decisions made without obviously my approving, but there's obviously a lot in the background that no one needs to annoy me about, because, I don't need to know about the complexities of not getting an order to Coles or not getting a whatever. But when it comes to like the bigger calls, for sure. Yeah.
Probably too soon, but do you know what's next?
I
don't want you to do any spoilers if it's not.
No. I'm not. I don't have an actual like event that I want to do, but it will come and it will be fun. And I don't know what it will be in, or if it will be on my feed or not. But
if it will be on your feet, so it could be a different discipline.
Maybe. I also just don't want to put any pressure on it. Like I want to just do it because I want to do it, like I've always done. And so, if a sponsor goes, "Oh, what are you doing in 2 years? We need to make sure we can capitalize on it." It's like, I'm sorry, like, but through the milk, through the uncomfortable challenge, through all these things I've built, it's like that's me, right? So we'll back it, and Puma back me massively. So I'm very like, I could say I'm going to do just some of the most rogue shit. They're like, we're in, but I'm just excited about. I think the uncomfortable challenge thing I really want to build out, and I want to be like front and center with that. So next year we'll do it again, but I want to kind of get around the community doing it. So we might fly to Perth, meet a run club here and do the first day here, then go to, fly all over and get around that. But yeah, for right now, mate, I'm just living each milk bottle at a time, each 2 weeks at a time.
I could honestly carry on talking to you for ages, but I know we've booked in a slot and we've got to stick to it. I know you don't do many podcasts either, so I'm, like I said at the start, hugely appreciative. There's guests that I've had and guests that I'm sure I have that will leave a lasting mark on me. There's an intensity that you speak with. There's an energy, like your nostrils flare when you get excited about something.
Dilated pupils.
There's just this has left a bit of a mark on me, I think, in terms of how I view certain things. I like to consider myself as being out there and pushing myself, but there's levels to it, and I think you've probably unlocked a couple for me. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, brother.
And like I said, coming to Sydney is a bit of a it's been, I've only been here 72 hours, but it's been eye-opening for the culture, how accepted we've been, the run club we've had this morning, and you coming on this podcast has topped it off, and we've still got 3 days to go. So I know this episode will go down a fucking treat with my audience. Like I said, massively grateful. You've inspired me. You're inspiring thousands of people around the world. At 25 years old, to raise that much money, to do what you've done, just fucking keep going, bro.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Nedd.
Thanks, brother.